Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Kazani. I'm the founder of SoftUp Technologies. My goal for this video series is to help at least one founder find their next software provider, whether it's with us or someone else. I have over 8 years of experience sitting both on the buyer and seller side of software development services, so I know the ins and outs. This is purely my experience, so there's not like a scientific study behind it, so it's just my experience. I'm just trying to help. Obviously, it's completely for free, so take it as it is. Today, we're going to talk about why low-cost outsourcing costs more. It's kind of a clickbaity title, and it's very counterintuitive, but I'll explain to you what I mean by that. So in the tech world, usually there's a saying, right? So if the product is free, you're the product. And this is true for like the Googles and the Facebooks of the world. So the products you use are completely for free, but the company ends up making money in some other way by selling data to third-party providers. So meaning that you're not paying for the product in money directly, but you are paying for it in some other way, right? So that's the concept, right? You're not paying with money, you're paying for it in some other method that still costs you something, but it's not monetary. And depending on what type of buyer you are, the least thing you want to do is be aware of it. And that's the point I'm trying to drive. So in software development services, obviously there's no free software development services, but the lower the cost, the more you have to pay for it in some other way, right? It could be time, could be delays, and we'll talk about it a bit later. And then the higher the cost, the less these problems. These things that you pay for never fully disappear, but they get reduced the higher the price goes. And then there's also another saying, software development, whereas cheap experiences are never great ones. They're usually born out of necessity and for lack of better options. So what is a way that you pay for it in software development or outsourcing? So one way you pay for it, besides money, right, besides your monthly invoice, is your time. And let's take an example. You hire a team in a low-income country, and let's say it's a very good deal. It's $10 per hour. There's usually 150 hours per month. So you're looking at 1.5K per developer times 3 developers. That's $4,500 for the whole team. And you're thinking, well, that's such a great deal. I usually can't even find one developer where I'm from or in my country for that price. So it's a really good deal, and you tend to start working with them. However, this team, what ends up happening is that they will need a lot of guidance, a lot of communication, a lot of kind of onboarding time, a lot of hand-holding, giving feedback, finding, you're going to have to jump in and find some bugs yourself because maybe the product is not built in the most perfect way. And let's say you'll end up spending 5 more days per month of your time. And if you're like a manager in any company in the West, roughly speaking, I'll take an average, your time is worth about $50 an hour. And if you spend 5 days per month, that's about $2,400. So you're thinking, well, it's not so bad. I mean, the team is still very cost effective. So my time to guide them is worth it. And even though it's 50% higher, you still think, well, it's not such a bad deal, and you continue working. But that's if you're a manager, right? And if it's just one of you. If you have cross communication, so if you have 5 teams from your side, from 5 in-house developers working with 5 offshore or outsourced developers, the price of that compounds. So the more miscommunication there is, the more you pay for it with your time, and you're paying for it in your country time. So obviously the cost of that is higher. And if you're an executive, let's say your time is worth, I don't know, I said, take an example, $110 an hour, could be lower, but could also be much higher. The time cost of your investment is about the same as the cost of the team itself. The only thing is you're not getting an invoice for your time because you're thinking, hey, right, you're just looking at the invoice you get every month and you say, hey, but that's still very cheap. However, you're finding yourself that you need to jump into more calls and you're not having time to finish other things, which was the reason why you outsourced this to begin with, right? So you outsourced to have more time to do more important things, and now you're having to go back take time from your day and go back to managing this team, which was hired to begin with to save you more time. So it's an interesting dichotomy, and it's something that tends to happen when you go from the cheapest possible option in the market, and it's something that you need to keep in mind. If you're a first-time founder and you have all the time in the world, this could be a best case scenario, because you say, hey, maybe you're not juggling too many priorities, you don't have live customers or legal teams or investors and things like that. But the more time your time is worth, the least economical this option becomes, right? Other ways you pay for low cost outsourcing, which is not in monetary way, is delays, and this can cost both in time and money. So there's miscommunications, there's more, as I said, more feedback, maybe not proper planning, and then you lose more time, and therefore you lose more money because you're paying basically for more money for more months or more weeks of development to achieve the same outcome. And it's just another way. And again, this is very trend based. It's a macro trend. I cannot say, if someone in the comments says, hey, my agency is low cost, but we deliver on time, great. But this is, again, generally speaking, from my experience being on both sides, you tend to get what you pay for. And then the other one is bugs and system failures or system bugs. Again, this will cost you in maybe non-directly monetary way. So you may lose a customer, and if you don't know the life cycle value of that customer, you cannot put a price behind it. Or there's a loss of reputation. Maybe people start trusting your product a bit less. Again, it's not a direct money, but you're paying for it in some other way. And we actually, every once in a while, we get a project where it needs some salvaging. So it's like someone comes to us and says, hey, we worked with this other agency, and we just didn't end up getting what we wanted. Here's the code base. Is there something you can do about it? And sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. So sometimes it's actually better if they start from scratch, and then it's a very sad scenario because it means that all the time the money invested is lost, basically. So something definitely you need to know and keep in mind when you make that pricing decision, right? If you're comparing prices, always keep in mind it's not an apples to apples comparison. And then the last thing is building the wrong thing. So again, when you have developers that they don't see things through the customers, they're not accustomed to building business-focused products. Their English speaking skills are not so good. There is miscommunication, and then you end up getting something that is slightly different. You can kind of make it work, but it's not exactly what you wanted. So again, your tolerance for that will dictate whether this is a good option for you. Okay, and lastly, I'll read a 1-star review on Clutch. So Clutch is a platform where you can give reviews about software development and design and marketing agencies. And this customer ended up being very unsatisfied, but there was a red flag there that I noticed that they should have noticed, and I think you should notice in the future when considering working with software development agencies. So the issues were evident early on, but the cost was low, so we continued working with them. So again, it's one of those things where you think, what's the big deal? I'm paying a little money anyway. There are some issues, but it's going to be fine. We're going to figure it out. And then you continue working, and then more issues come up, and then you end up in a place where you're not happy because you're paying something but not getting enough value in return. So I'm not saying that. Here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that if you work with experienced and expensive agencies, you'll have no issue at all. But it's a gradient, right? So you start here, you pay very little in money, but you pay with your time and with delays and with more guidance and so on. And then the more you increase your time, the more you increase the price, the less of these issues you have, and then until you go to the opposite end. This will never be zero, but this will also never be zero. So you need to keep those in mind. And depending what type of buyer you are, what type of agency you're looking for, this is the trade-off that you're doing when you're making such a decision. And again, all I'm saying is you pay what you get for. So if you're just looking at pricing, yes, the price will be cheaper, but what you're getting is also maybe less value and it will require more of your time. So this is the kind of decision you need to make depending on where you are on your startup journey. Thanks.